Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in.
Trends in Science.
Hey, everybody. Welcome again to nutritionradio.org. Today we're going to take a little bit deeper dive into something suggested by listener Pete. GLP-1 drugs and even foods, or at least foods related to it. Well, what is GLP-1? GLP-1 is called glucagon-like peptide 1. It's one of the incretin hormones, and it does cool things. I would even point you to just do a Google image search, specifically legitimate sources. ResearchGate images will show up there, and they'll show this great little infographic. It doesn't just do cool things like neuroprotection, but it decreases appetite. It increases insulin sensitivity. Now, that's very interesting, right? Shuttling more carbohydrates into muscle tissue where, generally it belongs. Reduced gastric emptying, things of that nature. So generally considered a good thing when it comes to things like carbohydrate metabolism and even weight loss. And so let's start with that. Some of the attention lately has come from published papers like this one by Sarma and Palcu, P-L-C-U. This is from Obesity Silver Spring 2022 November, so quite new. Weight loss between glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists, right, so just stimulators of this receptor, and bariatric surgery in adults with obesity, a systematic review and meta-analysis. So they're going to compare GLP-1 drugs with bariatric surgery, which we know causes massive weight loss and corrections to metabolism. The authors start off by saying that glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonists, right, these GLP-1 drugs, recently demonstrated 15 to 20% weight loss in adults with obesity, and that's a range that's previously been achieved only with bariatric surgery. So they're eager to compare this in a systematic review and meta-analysis, so a study of other studies. So they looked at 6 studies encompassing 332 patients, both randomized controlled trials and just observational studies, right, which aren't cause and effect, but they have interesting benefits themselves. It says, among randomized controlled trials, mean difference in weight between all bariatric surgery types, right, there's more than one type, and GLP drugs was 22.68 kilograms. In body mass index, right, BMI, the difference was 8.18 kilograms per meter squared, right, units of BMI. So that's just weight for height calculation. And the mean difference in glycated hemoglobin, so gummed up protein in your red blood cells, if you will, was 1.28%. It says among observational studies, the mean difference in weight loss was actually comparable. It was 25.1 kilos, and the difference in BMI was 10.6. Only one observational study reported actual glycemic outcomes, right, a marker of carbohydrate control. They conclude that in adults with obesity, again, this is adults with obesity, bariatric surgery, that's going to be the population that gets it, still confers the highest reductions in weight and BMI, but confers similar effects on glycemic control when compared to GLP-1 receptor agonists. Again, very interesting stuff about these GLP-1 drugs. Again, recently demonstrating a 15 to 20% weight loss. Can they match bariatric surgery? No, but they do a pretty darn good job, and it's something that a lot of people are giving attention to. Well, this is a nutrition podcast mostly, not primarily drugs. So let's look at a paper by Yaribegi, Y-A-R-I-B-E-Y-G-I, and colleagues. This is 2021 paper from Advances Experimental Medicine and Biology, again, 2021, boosting GLP-1 by natural products. They start off by talking about the prevalence of diabetes, how much it's growing, its underlying cause of lots of metabolic and tissue dysfunction, and that these GLP-1 drugs, right, receptor agonists, are a newly developed class of anti-diabetic drug that has all kinds of benefits, essentially. In addition to synthetic GLP-1 receptor agonists, some evidence suggests that natural products may have a modulatory effect on GLP-1 expression and secretion. So what is out there from the dietary supplement and nutrient world that, at least at this point in time, could have a benefit on increasing secretion of this beneficial hormone? It conclude the following, that certain herbal-based constituents, including berberine, tea, curcumin, cinnamon, and then wheat, interestingly, soybean, interestingly, resveratrol, and gardenia can exert an influence on GLP-1 release. Now, if you're interested in things like berberine, tea, curcumin, cinnamon, what they do, what they don't do, I'm actually working on a book with a co-author where we're going to just give you the Cliff's Notes on all of these sorts of things, these ingredients. So I'll keep everybody posted more on that. Very exciting stuff. Again, sort of Cliff's Notes. I've done books like this before, and they can be very valuable just to leaf through and say, what is berberine again? Just so you can kind of Cliff's Notes as far as, especially this focus will be on healthier people and even sports nutrition. But since we're talking about incretins like GLP-1 and glycemia and that sort of thing, here's one more paper, brand new. I just want to squeeze it in. We have the time. Nutrients 2023 by Yanagimoto and colleagues. Acute dose-response effectiveness of combined catechins and chlorogenic acids on postprandial glycemic responses in healthy men. Results from 2 randomized studies. So what they're going to do is they're going to look at some of the botanical constituents of green tea and coffee and see what it does to incretin hormones and carb control. Start off by saying that epidemiologic studies, right, just observing the population, show that the risk of diabetes can be reduced by ingesting green tea or coffee, and that previous studies have shown that simultaneously taking green tea catechins and coffee chlorogenic acid alters postprandial, right, after eating, gastrointestinal hormone secretion and improves insulin sensitivity. Now, if you're even middle age, you're probably dealing with a little bit of reduced insulin sensitivity anyway. This is not just for people who are diabetic. In fact, roughly 1 out of 3 people are pre-diabetic, which means they just don't handle carbs very well in the U.S. But in this randomized double-blind placebo-controlled crossover study, so this is a very strict design, they say that they examined the effects of green tea catechins and chlorogenic acid on post-meal glucose, insulin, and incretin responses to a high-fat and high-carb meal containing, it was a cookie containing 75 grams of glucose. And this is in healthy men this time. In study 1 that had 18 subjects, they looked at 2 doses of the green tea catechins, 270 milligrams or 540 milligrams, with a fixed dose of the coffee chlorogenic acid at 270. Now, a cup of coffee varies hugely between, let's say, 40 and 400 milligrams of chlorogenic acid, CGA. But in any case, they held that one fixed. And then they did another study, study 2, again, 18 subjects, that looked at 2 doses of the chlorogenic acid, 150 milligrams or 300 milligrams. And then in that one, they used a fixed dose of the green tea catechins at 540 milligrams. And both of these had around 100 milligrams of caffeine in them, just because I think it's generally comes with the package of coffee and tea. What did they conclude? That the single combined ingestion of green tea catechins and chlorogenic acid from coffee significantly altered the incretin response and suppressed glucose and insulin levels. These findings suggest that the effective minimum dose is 540 milligrams of the green tea catechins and 150 milligrams of the coffee chlorogenic acid. Very cool stuff. Many of you know that I'm a coffee researcher. I have been in the past, so this is brand new stuff, very interesting. It's not something that I typically consume together, but I might give this a thought and play around with this a little bit myself. So that's going to be it for this time. Again, a bit of a deep dive on GLP-1 foods and drugs. We'll see you later.
The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.